The Australian Financial Review.
As a journalist, I'm often asked how I cope with deadlines. My response is, how do you get anything done without them? There's nothing that focuses the mind more than a deadline, and there's no time for procrastination. Although my next guest doesn't work in the news business, she too knows the perils of procrastinating. Tania Austin co-founded Cotton On, and then in 2008 bought Decjuba, a women's fashion chain of just 5 stores. Now, there are more than 140 stores across Australia and New Zealand, helping drive turnover beyond $170 million a year, and her success makes her one of the nation's richest entrepreneurs. But she didn't get there by sitting still. In fact, one of Tania Austin's favourite quotes is emblazoned on the wall at her company's Melbourne head office. Get shit done. Hi, I'm Julianne Sprague. You're listening to Female Founders, a production from the team at How I Made It. In this series, you'll hear from women who've built their businesses from scratch, how they've persevered against enormous challenges, and their daily hacks to get ahead. Tania, thank you so much for joining us in our Melbourne studios, appropriately dressed in Melbourne black.
Absolutely. On brand today.
On brand with our black studio. Before we talk about setting up your company, Decjuba, a well-known fashion brand, 140 stores and growing. Before we get to how you've grown that business, let's talk about Tania Austin from the early days. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What were you like as a kid?
Okay, so I grew up in Perth, very fond of memories of Western Australia and growing up over there. Parents were working class, both worked. My grandparents were both born overseas and my parents were actually born overseas. So general middle class, went to public schools, enjoyed it, and just a really regular upbringing.
And what were you like as a student?
I was someone who always applied myself. And I think on my report card, the notation was always plays well with others. And I think that's probably something that's stuck with me, that I get along with people. I enjoy being around people. It's something that's probably been there for a long time. But yeah, I apply myself, I think would be a good sort of one-liner.
Okay. And then you apply yourself, so you do go and study at university. What is it that you choose?
Yeah, I went and did my BA in psychology. And I really enjoyed that. I found at times that I wanted to do more. So I actually did on the side an interior design degree as well, which was probably served me really well with the number of stores I've now opened to the amount of floor plans that we look at on a day-to-day basis. But really enjoyed university. I was at the University of Western Australia, so loved that being able to apply myself in that way. It was great.
So now I'm just trying to work out how you go from studying psychology and interior design to running fashion stores. So something happens along the way. So what are the first jobs?
Yeah, so I've worked literally since I was 12. So, back in the day that was okay. I used to lick the back of stamps, put them on envelopes, sending out tickets to concerts to the entertainment centre in Western Australia.
I wonder if you sent me one.
I possibly may have. It was hand addressed. It may not have gotten there. I don't know how good the post was back then. And then my first, I guess, real job was at Red Rooster, which was great. Great grounding, fast food. It's agile, it's quick. There's plenty of shifts. It kept me busy, so that was great. And then I moved into another retail concept called Bliss, which is now no longer there in Western Australia, but it was very high-end retail. So that whilst I was studying, I always had part-time jobs to finance the life that, I needed to finance because there wasn't any other money coming in from any other source. So through all of that, I was still more passionate about working with people than I ever was about fashion, interestingly enough. So I didn't sort of grow up with a burning desire to start a fashion label. I just grew up with a burning desire to do something. Okay.
And so do you remember what your first was there a corporate job? So Red Rooster and Bliss, that's why you're sort of studying. So you finished the degree and then what's full-time
Yeah,
work?
So I finished the degree and I met my now ex-husband And that's sort of what catapulted into, I guess the next part of my story, which was the early days at Cotton On. Sort of was where I learned a lot of the things that I apply in business today.
So we're talking about Nigel Austin, who, if for people listening, has the Cotton On stores. He's a Victorian, you're in Perth, so there's something happens along the way where you guys meet up, fall in love with one another.
Absolutely.
Head over heels.
We meet in Perth. And it was a quick story, and we joined together pretty quickly. Cotton On was a very different vehicle back then. We're talking like 30 years ago now, like it's a lifetime ago. And, it was a great journey to build that brand, and then to see it flourish as it has continued to do so is awesome. Like, to see the things that you've been a part of go on and be successful, for me, that's the cornerstone of success. That's what you want. You want to be able to create things that live well past you.
So when you've met Nigel, so there's like a handful of stores. I'm not even sure they're called Cotton On at the time. It's a very different iteration. What was your role there? Like how do you help sort of grow that business into what we would associate with Cotton On today?
Yeah, I think that like any business that is in that startup mode, you're hands-on, you're across everything. So everything from selecting the product to packing the product to driving it to the stores to unpacking it to putting it on the shop floor and then spending the day on the shop floor selling the product. And it's fun because you're doing things that you're passionate about doing. So, but there's no doubt about it. It's not a particularly sexy story. And I think that most of startup stories aren't. There's like a whole lot of background to what you see in any business that you're just not aware of. But yeah, like it was hands-on. It was everything. And
along that journey, so how many years are you building Cotton On? How many years into the journey do we get before you and Nigel decide you're going your separate ways? And how do you navigate that period of your life where you've built a business with someone, you've built a life with someone, and then you're going in different directions? Yeah,
so we're sort of 14, 15 years into the journey. There's 400 stores and we go our separate ways. And at that point, our kids were really young. They were sort of 1, 3 and 5, or they were just a little bit before that actually. They were all under 4 years of age. And so I'm suddenly a single mum. We decided to split that business, and Nigel retained the business, which was the right thing to do for the business at the time without a doubt. I'm standing there now going, great, what do I do with the rest of my life? And you know what? There's not many times that you get that opportunity in your life to go, what do I want to do?
I hear that, but the other part of me thinks 3 kids. I think you just mentioned 3 under 4.
Yeah,
I've got 1, and that's a struggle and a juggle, but that's for another podcast.
100%.
All I can think about right now is there's some sort of a settlement of some sort, and I'm thinking that Tania Austin, mum of 3 kids under 4, could probably quite easily not work for a little bit.
Yeah. There's something about the way I'm wired that was just never an option for me. And I think, my grandma, there was something that she said to me when I was really, really young, and it was, you've got to push it to make it go. And it's something I've applied that quite broadly to my life, to everything. I'm like, things aren't going to happen on their own for you. So if you want to build the life that you want, then you've got to push things to make them go in the way you want them to.
So in that moment, so you've stepped away from Cotton On, successful business, you've got your 3 kids. Can you remember what it was? Did you jot something down and say, this is the life I want?
I think it was more instinctive. I knew that I really enjoyed retail, and I knew that I could create or wanted to create something different to what we had created at Cotton On. I didn't want to do that again. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to create a brand that really resonated with me, with how I wanted to dress and how I felt people wanted to dress and how we could make it easier for people. So it started off with this whole concept of how can we make things easier? I think like a lot of good businesses, it's like, what's the problem and how can I solve that problem? So for me, I think that intrinsically I wanted to stay in retail. I didn't understand wholesale. There was a whole lot of other things that I maybe could have done, but retail was something that I was super passionate about.
So you've got the 3 kids, and then
I love that you keep coming back to
I
that.
know, and I'm really sorry that I actually
I
really am sorry that I do, because I know we don't do this with, male CEOs or whatever, but I'm still caught up in the idea that there's a settlement, there's 3 young kids. I don't know, mate, you could have chosen a job maybe that's just a little less stress than starting a business or having a startup business. I'm just trying to think about Tania Austin in that moment of why was it important for you with your kids, or what?
Yeah, you're 100% right. I looked at it and I thought, what sort of role model do I want to be for my children? And what are the role models I've had around me, and particularly female ones? And I'm going to be a single mum for the foreseeable future. So what do I want that to look like? And I think that for me, working was really a big part of that puzzle. I wanted my children to know that I am many things, a mother being one of them, and that it's important that they could see that I had other aspects to me, and that they know growing up that that's the life they can choose as well. They can bring to the surface whatever it is that they want to be as well.
So you see this fashion store. It is called Decjuba.
Yeah, Decjuba.
Decjuba.
Absolutely.
Decjuba.
So
it was called Decjuba at the time.
It was called Decjuba at the time, 100%. And there was 5 stores in operation. And again, I guess it's the same sort of journey. They looked then nothing like they look today. So it was quite occasion sort of dressing and lots of beads and sequins and really PME product, yeah. But I liked the concept. We'd built a couple of brands. I'd started Cotton On Kids and Cotton On Body and a couple of other brands along the way. So I liked this concept of having a brand that existed. It sounds crazy saying this, but it felt like it would be something easy to do, to have a brand that had 5 stores coming out of a 400 store operation, thinking, well, this is 5. I could do this on a Monday. This will be something that won't take a lot of time, and whilst I sort of get myself sorted and rebuild and rethink about what I want to do with this brand, this won't take up a lot of time. It's only 5 stores.
All right, let's think about that time. How did that go for you, working 1 day a week?
Well, it didn't go at all. So it was never 1 day a week. And again, I think any business in that phase is never 1 day a week. It became as consuming because the passion is no different, regardless of if there's 1 store or 400 stores. The passion and the energy and the ideas and what you want to do is still the same.
And did you have to throw the lion's share of the settlement on buying those stores? Was it a big risk in a sense that if it didn't go well, you were sort of kind of thinking about, no, now your back's really against the wall? I
think that with anything you do, there's a risk, and you calculate that based on whatever you're doing at the time. Is this something that I can back myself doing? And I felt really confident. We have a little bit of a saying in the office at Decjuba, if plan A doesn't work, go to plan B. And someone always says to me, or someone said to me once, well, what's plan B? And I'm like, plan B is to make plan A work. That's plan B. There's no other plan.
So that's it. So another person who uses a plan A, plan B quote is someone else from Western Australia. His name's Andrew Forrest.
I've not heard it. I should have by now, I'm sure. Yeah.
I know, it sounds funny. We're people from Perth and we all just hang out and talk quotes. No, it's not really like that. But anyway, Andrew says you've got to have a plan A, and you shoot for the stars, get the moon, all that sort of jazz. But you have to have a bulletproof plan B. So he's all about stretch targets, go for broke, but a bulletproof plan B so things don't implode.
Yeah.
Your view would, though, be that your bulletproof plan B is to make plan A work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Review plan A, unless it was something. But plan A should have been well thought through. It should have been, plan A should be right.
Okay.
What happens is you lose sight of it. You lose a little bit of you get a little bit nervous, you get a little bit off track, you lose your vision, you lose your focus. If you actually just go back to the principles that took you to plan A.
So let's talk about that. Did you ever get distracted, lose focus? What were some of the challenges, particularly in those early days when you've got a small store and you're trying to build it into the vision that you can see, but it's not always just unicorns and rainbows? What happens?
I think the challenge is to get clarity around your vision. And I don't think I really had clarity around that until about maybe 4 or 5 years into the business, I probably didn't really have clarity. I knew what I was doing. Of course, I knew what I was doing, but I just didn't have that one line that I could come back to or that I could continue to bring the team back to all the time. So it was about 5 years into the business when we sort of coined this idea. I really coined this idea of my why behind what I was doing, and it was around this brand vision, which sticks with us today. And I'm sure anyone who spent any time with me knows this without a doubt, that our brand vision is to make our customer look and feel amazing. And once we had settled on that, everything else became so much easier after that. And it's something you labour on. You go and do these workshops around mission statements and visions and goal setting, and they're all great and you should do all those things. But often people labour with this. It's like, how do I do a mission statement? How do I get a vision? And it's actually generally something really, really super simple. And for me, it was very much about, I want our customer to look and feel amazing. Now, how do we do that? So I guess, how do you stay focused? How do you make sure plan A is right? It is having something like that is so crystal clear that you can just continually come back to.
Is there a moment when things didn't go right?
There's nothing that's been catastrophic. There's always things that don't go right. There's stores that we open that we think are going to, be fantastic and they're not. Kids wear's been a little bit of an up and down for us because the product's amazing and it's so well received that we thought we could put it into more spaces than we have, and we haven't been able to. But when it trades or when it works, when we're in the right area, it's fantastic. But we've learnt a lot about where it doesn't belong as well.
Oh, okay. So this is you set up the kids within the business, and
Yeah.
then it does well, and then the plan is to then put it into, I guess, all of the stores or
open
most
more
of the
stores.
stores.
Yeah, open more. Like, it's just to keep rolling. That's had a bit of a stop-start. But again, back to what's the vision, what's the purpose with the brand, and, just recentering back to that. So nothing catastrophic that's really swept us sideways, though. We've been, we were sort of a little bit slow to build, I think, in those first sort of 5 years. But, and we've been very fast to build in sort of the last 8 years, COVID aside, and we actually opened a huge amount of stores through that, global pause, as we like to call it, and took an opportunity through that time to continue on our plan A, I guess.
And you talked about the growth was slow and sort of now it's fast. My understanding is you've not taken on any external investors. So it's not like there's sort of this injection of capital that comes in and that allows you to go from 5 to 140 stores. But what were the sort of key planks to getting that growth without necessarily having to go and ask someone for this massive capital injection to do it?
I think, again, centering back on having a great idea and then growing that great idea. So you touched on scale. So they kind of go hand in hand. So scale allows you to increase your turnover, obviously, which in turn, if you've got the right idea, allows you to continue to grow. So it was very important to me that the business, any business that we operate, stands on its own 2 feet. So we've never grown at a rate faster than we can finance. So there's been a huge discipline about that. But what it has meant is that when we're doing those leasing deals, there is not an extra cent to give. There just isn't. You can't. When we're buying product, we're negotiating that at the right, at what we can afford to pay for the product. So as the business has gotten a lot larger at 140 stores now, we have a lot of specialists in the business. But some of my team who've been with me through the whole journey, through the 15 years, 14 years, 12 years, 8 years, 10 years, and there's a lot of them, are real generalists because they've had to do everything. And I think those lessons that I learned in my early days of retail when I was sweeping the floor, or I was buying the stock, packing the stock, unpacking the stock, selling the stock, driving the stock to the stores to sell the stock, moving it around between the stores when it sold better in one store and not in another store. These are the lessons that you take with you. So I guess in many ways we have quite a small business mindset in the way we operate. We don't look for the flashy option. We've never spent on marketing along the way. We do digital marketing now, obviously. E-commerce wasn't in existence at a point in my retail career, but we never spent money on marketing. I'm a big believer in that the brand and the product need to stand on its own 2 feet. So we've never spent money that we've never had, is the simple line there. And we haven't been able to do everything we wanted to do.
But this is where the discipline part comes in,
It's
right?
a massive discipline.
So you know, there's the balance sheet, you've got your revenue coming in, and you're going to keep your cost base so that it's not going to, you don't spend more than you earn. It's an old adage, right?
Yeah. There's something really funny about business. It's actually quite logical.
It's true until someone's standing in your office saying, but actually, if we went and if we spent this, you know, there's this blue sky and we can go and do this. And the arguments are pretty compelling. I'm sure you've heard many of them.
Many of them. But, you know, business is tactile, it's logical, it's based on facts. And I think that as long as you can keep yourself grounded enough to sit with those, I often say, and I remind my team, that business or retail in particular is as much a science as it is an art. So we can be creative, we can come up with all the ideas, but there's got to be a business case for it. You know, we've got to actually work out how we're going to finance it, how we're going to bring it to market and what it's going to return. So, you know, a lot of that in early days is, you know, being really tough with negotiating supplier terms so that you're not paying for product up front necessarily. You're getting it in and you're selling it and then you're paying for it. So
But how? You say it sort of so matter-of-factly, and I'm inspired by it. I'm like, yeah, I can totally go and do this, Tania. But I imagine those conversations aren't actually all that easy, particularly when you're a newer player and these people don't know you. I mean, perhaps maybe they know you from the Cotton On days, but
yeah, but it's a different vehicle. You've got 5 stores as opposed to 400.
Correct.
I can be anyone. I'm not placing 10,000 of something. I'm now placing 100 of something.
So how do you convince someone to do that for you?
Well, you know, passion goes a long way, without a doubt, self-belief. And, you know, we talk, you know, I knew what I was going to do with the brand. So, yeah, we're 5 stores now. We're going to be 20. We're going to be 50. We're going to be 100. This is the journey. I'm going to take you on the journey. I need you to support me. I need you to believe in me. This is how I'm going to do it. So very much based on that self-belief, but a genuine belief that that was what I was going to do.
And so you just articulate that story to your suppliers so they can see you, they then back you, and then if you grow, they grow.
100%.
Win-win. Okay.
Yeah, it's a journey. Let's get in this together.
Do you remember the first day? Do you remember when you've bought your 5 stores and you're going to work that one day a week? Do you remember your first Monday?
Yeah, I went in and I met the team. Like, I introduced myself, told them what we were going to do.
And what was that? Was it, hi, I'm Tania Austin. We're going to become 140 stores. Just you watch.
We're going to grow. We're going to grow and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. Yeah, I don't remember it in detail. I remember the space though. I remember the team. I remember the team who were there at the time.
Are some of those team members still
there? Yeah, my financial controller, Francis, is still with me today. He's actually been with the business 18 years, longer than me.
So 18 years, that's extraordinary. And you did mention other people have been there for 15, 10. There seems to be a collection of people who've worked with you for a really long time. We are in an environment, though, where people change jobs almost like underwear, actually. Like, they change careers, they move around. When we come back from the break, I want to talk to you about how you retain that key talent and then also how you spot it. If you spot someone really good, how do you get them into your business and then padlock the door and stop them leaving? So, Tania, we've chatted about the journey, the early days in Cotton On to then you deciding you're going to get a 1-day-a-week job and buy a 5-store chain called Decjuba that very quickly becomes a full-time gig. And you've grown it now to 140 stores across Australia and New Zealand. I did want to get into the recruitment side of things and people, because as much as you've done fantastically well, great success story, you are but just one woman, a super one at that. But you do need a good team around you. How do you keep good talent?
What I have found to be probably the most compelling thing that keeps my team together, our team together, is the strength of the vision and the clarity of the vision. So for me, great people want to know why they're doing something, and they want to know that what they're doing has purpose and has an outcome. And they want to talk about that, and they want to excel at that, and they're passionate about it, and they want to work in an environment where that passion is matched, where they're challenged, and where they're contributing to something that is bigger than them but aligns with their values. You know, some people call it the heart of a business, the culture. I don't call it any of those things. I call it finding people who are passionate and then want to be on that journey, and then allowing them to go and do the thing that they are amazing at. Go do your thing. Like, I am not a micromanager by any stretch. Again, back to that, here's what I know to be true. I cannot do it alone. We've got 165 team now at head office, 2,000 team across all our stores. There's no way I can do it alone. But allowing each and every one of those team to shine and to excel and to be their best at the bit that they bring to the table, which in most cases is doing it better than I do it, because I am the generalist, is an amazing thing to see.
And how do you stand back? Because it is, as much as you're saying you're a generalist and you need people around you, at the end of the day, it is your business buck stopping with you. Has there been some times where you've given someone free rein and it's blown up, or is it just that people can make mistakes and we all move on? And
yeah, I'm always fascinated with the whole concept of decision making and how someone comes to a decision. So there's no fail, there's no mistake that can't be corrected. There's nothing that can't be caught. I think it is about having, yes, myself, I'm involved in the business day to day, but it's about having that exec team who are involved in that decision-making process to be, have the right touch points along the way to catch anything before it is a catastrophe. So they're conversations. So everything's tabled, everything's talked about, but there's a framework around making decisions that, align again back to the brand values and the brand vision and what we're trying to achieve at any point in time. So they're making the decisions based on those things. I'm usually there. I'm the agitator. I'm usually there saying, well, what about if you did that, more of that? Or what about if you push that harder? I often think my job is to challenge people and move them out of what they consider to be their safe space sometimes and put them into more of an uncomfortable space so that we create something that is more amazing.
Is there a recent example where you might have just suggested to the team, hey, you know what, I'm going to do this, and it sort of turned everything up on its head and they all had to sort of scurry, but you pulled it off? It
happened particularly through that, when we were reevaluating our whole leasing strategy through COVID, and lots of retailers were closing down, and I saw that as an opportunity to go and open stores and double the footprint of our stores. The team were really nervous about that, and I'm like, I had to push them on that and challenge them and explain the why behind it.
Yeah, I might need to know that. But let's just in case you've forgotten, Tania, during the pandemic, people were locked down and shopping centres were sort of banned for most of it. It was essential items only, and as much as you would probably argue that Decjuba is an essential item for women's wear.
We were not essential at that point in time.
Correct.
Absolutely not.
And so you sit back and go, yeah, let's go and open more stores.
Yeah. I often consider the business as a 3P business. We've got product, which is obviously what we produce. We've got our people, which is incredibly important. And then we have our property. So property is a huge part of what we do. So there was just a huge opportunity through that time while everyone was sort of thinking they needed to shut stores. Really, it was going to go one of two ways. The world was imploding, or there was going to be a recovery at some point, and life was going to emerge in a different way, but it was going to happen. So again, back to the bravery and the optimism, we took that road, and it was a great project for the team. So they really got behind that. So yeah, we spent a lot of time doubling stores and opening a lot of them through that time.
Does it mean
when we could, when the centres were open?
Well, yes.
Not when we couldn't, yeah.
But does it mean, though, you were able to get the sites that you wanted because people were exiting during
Yeah.
COVID?
Yeah.
Or was it also then, or maybe it was two things, but did you also just get better leasing deals out of those landlords because they were pretty worried?
Yeah, it was a combination of anything. The focus was definitely on the sites and on the size of the sites. So that was the primary goal without a doubt. The deal is always, where the team spend a lot of time. Obviously, it needs to be commercial for us and for the landlord, but it was definitely on size and number. Like that was the primary focus.
Okay. You have quotes around your office.
We do.
Can you recall any?
Oh my God! Like what do we have? One of my favourites. There's 7 days in the week, and some day isn't one of them. Like when people say, I'm going to do it, when are you going to do it? Oh, we'll get to it someday. It's like there's 7 days in the week. Some day is not one of them.
Don't procrastinate.
Yeah, I do like that one.
Can we chat about advice?
It's probably a couple I shouldn't mention.
Oh, no, okay, no. We're going back to the quotes. Okay, what's the one that you shouldn't mention for everyone playing at home?
There's one every time I get my photo taken in front of the marketing team roll their eyes, and it's good. I like it. It's get shit done. And the SH is in brackets, and it's get it done, but it's get shit done. And it's pretty much how we operate and how we roll. Like it's really, I can't solve something if I don't understand the problem. Let's just cut to the chase, work out what the problem is. Let's do that. Let's do that together, and then we can move through it together. But this concept of not letting things dwell, not letting things fester, just moving through things really fast is really important, which is why I have my photo taken in front of the sign.
Well, I was going to ask you about advice for other people in business, but maybe it's just to come to your offices and read the quotes.
People like them. Yeah, they're good.
Just basically get shit done.
Yeah.
If you could go back 15 years ago, whisper in your ear or maybe yell at yourself, whatever you want to do, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, wow. Do you. You're going to be judged anyway, whether you're divorced or single, have 3 children or no children, have a business or not have a business. Who I am, how I show up, what I do and what's important to me is what I would tell myself to focus on, because you're going to be judged whatever you do. I'm not really interested in what other people are saying. I'm interested in what we're doing. And I think the other thing that I would always tell myself that I think is something that's easier as you get older, so it would be nice to hear it when you're younger, is embrace change. And I see it time and time again that people just get caught in doing things because they've done them and not challenging it. Some of the greatest things that have happened in my life wouldn't have happened if I kept doing things the same way.
So do you sort of constantly reevaluate why you're doing things, or is it just that something gets presented to you and go, actually, you know what, let's try it this way, and you're sort of more adaptable? Yeah,
I think fundamentally I prescribe to the business principle of keeping things as simple as possible. So that mindset in itself lends you to think about, how can I do this better? Is this amazing? Have we delivered to amazing? So by us just sense checking back to those questions often stimulates a change rather than just rolling along with things. I'm not great with the CP, the critical path. I'm more interested in what we're delivering, not in ticking the box to deliver it because that's what we have to do. I'm far more passionate about making sure it's amazing and it's delivered to what we wanted it to do. So, yeah, I think there's just an innate, question mark there for me continually about how do we make sure this is amazing.
I feel like you might be someone who's pretty efficient with their time, given one of your mottos is get shit done. So in honour of the quote on your wall, I didn't want to ask you about a productivity hack. Is there something that you do in your day-to-day that you can get more out of your day because you do it, or perhaps it's something you're not doing?
I've got 3. One's a functional productivity hack. So it's you can take this and do this yourself. My productivity hack is write it down. Life is not a memory game. Write it down. So when I'm in a meeting, regardless of what the meeting is, if I hear something great, I write it down. So generally now on a phone, on notes, or in I've got lots of little apps or whatever, but on a piece of paper, pen, whatever, I write it down.
Are you driving in your car and do you do those old school recorders?
Yeah, or I'll send myself a message or something like that. Not quite the old school recorder, but I will capture it. If it's that amazing, I'll pull over and write it down. Nothing makes me anxious other than seeing someone sitting, listening to someone talk about some amazing things and they're not taking notes. They're like, oh no, I was just going to jot things down later. I'm like, how do you remember that? Maybe it's me. Maybe it's just that my memory is so poor. But yeah, write it down is something that I do. Life's not a memory game. The other one, interestingly, the other two are a little bit more esoteric, but I think you can apply these as well. I think everyone can apply these. The first one is slow down to speed up. This is a principle that served me incredibly well. I know that you're going, how is that a productivity hack? If you slow down and you get plan A right, you're going to deliver it faster and you're going to be able to go faster. So when you slow down, you spend the time on something, you've had the right meetings, you've had the right conversations, you've involved the right people, you know exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it, when we're delivering it, you can then speed up. And then the last one, which is another phrase of mine, so that's what I was thinking about with productivity. I apply this to myself and I ask the question of my team. Whenever we've got a great idea or we're implementing something, I'm like, I want to know the what by when. What exactly are we doing and when exactly are we doing it by? Because no idea is great if we don't know exactly what we're doing or that we can deliver it and when we're going to deliver it.
And when those responses might come back, so the what gets answered and a when gets answered, back to the earlier point of slow down, what happens when those deadlines don't get met?
Well, we sense check the when.
Okay.
I'm like, really? Super interesting. I'm going to jot that down. You're committed to that date? You can deliver amazing by that date?
Okay,
really?
Yeah, there's a stare. It won't resonate on the podcast, but I can tell you right now, Tania Austin is staring at me with a steely resolve about whether I can deliver by that date. And I'm really not sure I can get Christmas presents in time for Christmas, but I will do my best.
Yeah.
Is there a piece of advice that you've been given along the way in your journey? Can you remember where someone might have imparted something to you that's really stuck with you and you've used in the business?
I think that one of the greatest pieces of advice I've been given is to listen more than I speak. And that was, again, something I had to learn to do. We all have lots, and I think when you're in a business and it's growing and there's great ideas, and I have lots of them, you want to share them. But I think that allowing others to come to the table, allowing them to, for me to slow down enough so that I can listen to what's also happening around me. But it also lets you evaluate where you need to be in the business and what I need to be doing in the business. So, yeah, I think that definitely listening, and actively listening.
Yes, that's actually that's a key word, that one, actively listening. And I'm actively listening because I am aware that we need to finish up. But before I do, I want to ask you one final question. The world is moving at a pace. Interest rates have risen. Consumer spending is slowing. What are the trends that you see and how is the business going to adapt over the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, what I have learnt along the way over the last 30 years is that business is not a straight or upward trajectory. It's a roller coaster. So it's important to always be thinking about what is happening, locally, globally, anywhere in the world. We're certainly always looking for opportunities to, de-risk and to think that could be at risk, supply chains, consumer demand, all the things that we might see change. But we're equally optimistic that when we stick to our brand promise of delivering amazing, that we're sort of future-proofed with that. We feel really confident about that. We don't see this huge demise. I'm not a pessimist by nature. So yeah, we're mindful, but we're optimistic. I see good things. I see good things in the future.
Oh, well, that's a lovely way to wrap up the podcast, that there are good things in the future.
Yeah.
And let's all be optimistic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Tania.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Female Founders, and be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And for more insight on entrepreneurs, subscribe to The Financial Review. Go to afr.com/subscribe. This podcast was presented by me, Julianne Sprague, edited by Lap Fan, produced by Lap Fan and Alex Gow, and our theme is by Alex Gow, and executive producer is Fiona Buffini.
The Australian Financial Review.